There we go. I'm hoping that I can get a better sound today than what we did on the last video, but if this is bad, I'll try to figure out a way to redo it. So today we are building on our previous experiences of a cube, and we're learning a new type of three-dimensional form. So in 6th grade you learned the basic forms: cube, cone, cylinder, sphere. This year we're going to learn how to turn a line into a three-dimensional shape. So we're going to use a lot of the same terminology that we used in our cubes and our cylinders. We have the creation of depth, which in 5th and 6th grade our brains are developing and we want to learn how to draw things that look realistic. And if there's nobody there to teach you how to incorporate the third dimension, which is depth, in your drawings, then it gets frustrating, and a lot of people quit drawing. But there's just a few tricks, and once you know those tricks, then you can make things look realistic. Because when we see the world with our eyes, everything is in 3D. We see the top, the side, the front, or we see the bottom, the side, and the front. And so you want to be able to draw that, and that's that 3D. So learning how to draw in 3D and how to shade things to show 3D is what gives you the ability to continue to develop your drawing into realistic. So we have the height and we have the depth, or the width, and then we have the depth. The depth is how it's going back into space. That's that diagonal line that we learned with your cube. Okay? So we also learned in 6th grade about the picture plane. The picture plane is your paper. And the things that are closer to you in the picture plane, that are farther down on the picture plane, are closer to you, and the things that are higher up on the picture plane are farther away. So what we're going to be learning today is called a breaking point. And when you have something that is a breaking point, you have a change in direction. Okay? So we're going to start with a line, and then we're going to come towards us with a diagonal line, forward, forward, forward. It's kind of a lightning bolt line. Okay? So we're going to use this same skill of parallel lines, but this time, instead of turning a shape like a square into a 3D form by adding depth, we're going to turn a line to show 3D space. So I'm going to make a line that comes down from every point. So a breaking point is where the line turns. So you have breaking points where the line begins and ends, and each time it turns. These breaking points back here, when you get to a line, you're going to stop. Okay? Are you starting to see the 3D already? Ready? You want these lines to all be the same length, if possible. Okay? So just like when we were doing our cubes, we learned that if we make our lines the same length, then we don't have to worry about having lines left over that we have to erase. Okay, are you ready for the parallel lines? The parallel lines are going to go parallel to this original zigzag. So the bottom of this line is going to come in. Now this one goes this way because you have to be parallel to that original line. Okay? So hopefully you can see the 3D in that. Here's where it is closest to us, and here's where it is farthest away. So this is your depth. Okay, and each one of these folds, it moves backwards, so you have some middle ground as well. So you have foreground, middle ground, background. So you're developing space in your picture, things that are closer to you and things that are further away, and the illusion of 3D because you see it bend. Now there's a ton of different ways that you can set this up. You can come forward and then go back. And again, each one of your breaking points is going to have a line that are the same length and at the same angle. You don't want some of them going out to the side and some of them going in. It's just like our cube. We want all the same angle, all the same length. Okay, on the foreground here where it's closest to us, and then the background where it's further away, these are parallel, equal distances from each other. Then we have to put our breaking points in here. We could do the same exact line, but we could go back, and then ooh, that wasn't very straight. So I know how high this line is, so I can kind of measure that with my fingers, and I can figure out where that line should be so that it's the same height. Okay, because here's your height and your width, but now we have depth because it's moving back into space with those different lines. So if you are you can make your line come up. You don't necessarily have to go a deep zigzag. It doesn't matter how you make your line. All of your lines are going to be the same. Then you're going to parallel. So there's a ton of different ways that this can work. Or you can go down. And then if we do our lines the same direction, see how there wouldn't be one here? Or barely one. Okay, this one's diagonal, so this one has to be diagonal. This one and this one are going to be parallel. This one and this one are going to be parallel. Okay. If you want to work with proportion, if you remember, proportion is one of the ways that we show space. We show space with overlapping, proportion, which is the size relationship of one thing to another, and with shading. So, into class. So as you're going back here, if I make my zigzags get smaller, this is where it's closer to me. I'm going to make my lines get shorter as they go back too. So then it's going to look more like a fence or something that's going away from you. And then not only do you have the 3D form, forgot that one, but you have the distance, proportion. So 3D can be proportion, it can be overlapping, which all of these are overlapping, which is showing distance. You're going to draw it as a three-dimensional object and then you shade it. So we'll talk about shading another day. This is probably enough for today. You can also create something that's called a breakthrough. A breakthrough is created with multiple breaking points. Okay, so if you were doing this one, whichever way you make your lines are all going to be the same. I would not have a line here because it's the same, right? Then my parallels might have a tiny bit there. So I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it from this direction. So I would not see the ones on this side. So it could be like a hole in the ground, it could be a hole in a glass window, it could be any number of things. The way that it would incorporate this into like a landscape, if you had a canyon, maybe there's a river flowing through, it's the Grand Canyon, look. Okay, so you have a river flowing through the bottom of there. Up here's your landscape. Well, it's all the landscape, but then you might have rocks or boulders down here that have slid down. You might have some textures, but this is how you would create the illusion that some of these spaces are coming forward and some of them are going back. Obviously there'd be a lot of textures and shading involved in that, but that gives you kind of an idea of how this simple skill develops and helps you to create a number of other things. So that is my breaking point zigzag dimension line lesson.